Welcome back to the Mayor File. I'm your host. Today, we are opening a file that explains how the machinery of American information was fundamentally rewired. We are not talking about a simple case of media bias. We are not talking about a news channel leaning left or right. We are talking about a merger, a complete, structural, and unprecedented merger between a major cable news network and the executive branch of the United States government. For decades, the boundaries between the press and the presidency were guarded by tradition, by ethics, and by a mutual, if sometimes hostile, respect for the truth. But Jane Mayer's investigative reporting, specifically her definitive piece, The Making of the Fox News White House, reveals that during the Trump presidency, those boundaries were not just crossed, they were erased. What emerged in their place was a symbiotic feedback loop where propaganda became policy, and policy became programming. Today, we are going to analyze the deep history of the relationship between Donald Trump and Rupert Murdoch, the revolving door that sent Fox News executives into the West Wing, and the specific suppression tactics used to kill stories that could have ended Trump's political career before it even began. This is the story of how a television network captured the White House. To understand the scale of what Jane Mayer uncovered, we have to start with the concept of state TV. In authoritarian regimes, the concept is simple. The government owns the station, writes the script, and broadcasts the message. But Mayer argues that what happened in America was something more complex and perhaps more dangerous. It was a privatized version of state TV. The government didn't own the station. The station, in many ways, owned the government. Mayer's reporting details a White House where the President of the United States was not just a consumer of Fox News, but a programmer. He live-tweeted segments. He hired guests he saw on Fox and Friends. He spoke to Sean Hannity nearly every night before bed, treating the talk show host as a shadow chief of staff. This wasn't just influence, it was a codependency that reshaped the reality for millions of Americans. But it wasn't always this way. One of the most fascinating aspects of Mayer's investigation is the revelation of how much Rupert Murdoch, the billionaire owner of Fox, originally despised Donald Trump. Mayer dug into the archives and interviewed associates who confirmed that for years, Murdoch viewed Trump as a phony, a charlatan, and an embarrassment to the wealthy elite. During the early stages of the 2016 primaries, the Wall Street Journal, also owned by Murdoch, was relentless in its criticism of Trump. They saw him as a threat to the free market conservatism that Murdoch championed. But then, something shifted. The numbers started coming in. Trump was winning, and more importantly for Murdoch, Trump was rating. Mayer explains that Murdoch is a pragmatist above all else. He likes a winner. And when he saw the audience, his audience, falling in love with Trump, he didn't fight it. He pivoted. He aligned the most powerful media machine in history behind the most disruptive candidate in history. This pivot wasn't just about editorial tone, it was about active suppression. One of the smoking guns in Jane Mayer's reporting is the story of Diana Falzone. Falzone was an on-air reporter for Fox News who, in 2016, uncovered a massive scoop. She had obtained proof that Donald Trump had engaged in a sexual relationship with adult film actress Stormy Daniels and had negotiated a hush-money payment to keep her quiet. This was before the election. This was the October surprise that could have sunk the campaign. Falzone had the receipts. She had the confirmation. She brought the story to her editors at Fox News, expecting it to be the lead story of the year. Instead, she was told, "Good reporting, kiddo. But Rupert wants Donald Trump to win, so just let it go." The story was killed. Buried. Mayer's reporting on this incident is chilling, because it proves that Fox News wasn't acting as a news organization. It was acting as a political superpiazzi. They suppressed a factual, vetted story to protect their preferred candidate. Falzone was later demoted and eventually pushed out, a casualty of the network's conversion into a political weapon. The synergy went deeper than just killing bad stories. It was about fabricating good ones. Mayer analyzes the tragic case of Seth Rich, a young DNC staffer who was murdered in Washington, D.C., in a botched robbery. It was a tragedy for his family, but for Fox News and the Trump operation, it was an opportunity. Mayer details how the network pushed a baseless conspiracy theory that Rich had been the one to leak DNC emails to WikiLeaks, not Russian hackers. Why push this lie? Because it exonerated Russia. It exonerated Trump. It suggested that the Russian collusion narrative was a hoax. Mayer reports that the White House was actively involved in pushing this narrative. It was a coordinated disinformation campaign designed to confuse the public and provide cover for the president. Fox News eventually had to retract the story and paid a massive settlement to the Rich family. But the damage was done. The narrative had been set. Millions of viewers believed it. The truth was secondary to the political utility of the lie. This brings us to the shadow cabinet. Mayer's reporting on Sean Hannity is perhaps the most vivid illustration of the merger. We all know Hannity is a Trump supporter. But Mayer revealed the extent of his involvement. She reported that Hannity effectively had a desk in the West Wing. He was on speed dial. Advisors in the White House knew that if they wanted to get the president to do something, or stop doing something, they had to get to Hannity first. Trump would watch Hannity's opening monologue and then repeat the talking points the next day as if they were intelligence briefings. It created a closed loop. Hannity would say it, Trump would believe it, Trump would act on it, and Hannity would praise him for it. There was no external reality checking. Mayer quotes former White House officials who were terrified of this dynamic. They were competing for the president's attention against a cable news host who had no responsibility to govern, only to entertain and enrage. The revolving door between Fox and the Trump administration was also literal. Mayer tracked the personnel. Bill Shine, a former co-president of Fox News who was ousted amid the network's sexual harassment scandals, was hired as Trump's deputy chief of staff for communications. Think about that. The man who ran the programming for the network became the man running the messaging for the White House. And he wasn't alone. Heather Nauert went from Fox and Friends to the State Department. John Bolton went from Fox contributor to National Security Advisor. Kimberly Guilfoyle, a Fox host, became a top advisor to the Trump campaign and the girlfriend of Donald Trump Jr. Mayer argues that you could no longer tell where the newsroom ended and the administration began. They were staffed by the same people, using the same language, pursuing the same goals. But why? What was in it for Murdoch? Mayer's analysis is cynical but sharp. It was about power and protection. Trump needed Fox for the base. Murdoch needed Trump for the regulatory environment. Mayer points out that the Trump administration's Department of Justice approved Disney's acquisition of 21st Century Fox's entertainment assets, a massive deal for the Murdoch family, while blocking a similar merger for AT&T and Time Warner, the parent company of CNN. Trump attacked CNN relentlessly, calling them fake news and enemy of the people. Meanwhile, he gave Fox News exclusive interviews, access, and regulatory favors. It was a transaction. You scratch my back, I broadcast your propaganda. Mayer also delves into the culture of fear that this alliance created. She reports on how other Republicans were terrified to cross Trump because they knew it meant crossing Fox. If a senator stepped out of line, Hannity or Tucker Carlson would target them in prime time. Their phone lines would melt down. Their primary challengers would get booked on Fox and Friends. It enforced a rigid party discipline that made the Fox-Trump merger the most powerful political force in the country. It hollowed out the Republican Party, replacing traditional conservatism with a populist, media-driven loyalty test. The impact of this, according to Mayer, is a degradation of truth itself. When a major news network abandons the basic principles of journalism, verification, independence, accountability, and replaces them with partisan advocacy, the public loses the ability to agree on basic facts. Mayer describes a country split into two realities. In the Fox reality, the economy was booming, the investigation into Russia was a witch hunt, and the president was a hero under siege. In the reality of facts and documentation, the picture was very different. But because the Fox ecosystem is so sealed, so comprehensive, the facts could never penetrate. Trump knew this. He told associates, "Fox is my killer." He meant it. Fox was the weapon he used to kill bad news and attack his enemies. Mayer's reporting also highlights the international consequences. She notes that state-run media is a hallmark of dictatorships because it is effective. It allows a leader to mobilize support without the friction of criticism. By cultivating his own private state media, Trump was able to govern with a level of impunity that no previous American president had enjoyed. Nixon didn't have Fox News. If he had, Mayer suggests, he might have survived Watergate. The existence of a massive, loyal propaganda arm changes the physics of political scandals. It provides a shield that deflects evidence and turns every accusation into proof of a conspiracy against the leader. The Fox News White House piece also touches on the personal dynamics. Mayer paints a portrait of Trump as a man obsessed with his own image, watching hours of television a day, measuring his success not by policy outcomes, but by chyrons and ratings. Fox News producers knew this. They learned how to program the president. If they wanted him to talk about immigration, they ran a segment on the migrant caravan at 8 a.m. By 8:15 a.m., the president was tweeting about the border. It was a terrifying form of remote control. The most powerful man on earth was reacting in real time to the editorial decisions of a cable news control room in New York. Mayer concludes her analysis by looking at the legacy of this merger. Even after Trump left office, the structure remained. The audience had been radicalized. They demanded the red meat. When Fox News tried to call Arizona for Biden on election night in 2020, a rare moment of journalistic independence, the backlash was ferocious. The viewers revolted, Trump attacked, and Fox, terrified of losing its market share to Newsmax or OAN, quickly fell back in line, purging the political editors who made the correct call and leaning into the stolen election narrative that led to January 6th. This proved Mayer's ultimate point. The monster had escaped the lab. Fox had created a base so radicalized by propaganda that even Fox could no longer control it. They were riding the tiger, and they couldn't get off. The Trump-Fox scheme is not just history, it is a blueprint. It showed future demagogues exactly how to capture a democracy. You don't need the military. You don't need to ban the opposition press. You just need one dominant network that is willing to sell its soul for access and ratings. You need to blur the line between entertainment and news until the viewer can't tell the difference. Jane Mayer's reporting stands as the definitive record of how this happened. She documented the meetings, the phone calls, the killed stories, and the hired hands. She showed us the machinery of the deception. And in doing so, she gave us a warning. The merger of state and media is the end of accountability. This is why we analyze the Mayer file, because when you turn on the TV, you aren't just seeing news, you are seeing the product of a deal made in backrooms between a billionaire media mogul and a politician who needed a shield. Understanding that deal is the first step to seeing through the propaganda.